Hello, I am your host Angus,
I'm your host, Anna.
and this is the first episode of Talking Politics. Now, this is going to be an addition to the Instagram for those of you who follow and sort of engage in all of our social medias. And essentially, it's going to be a weekly podcast. We hope, give or take, schedules coming together. It is coming up to exams now, but hopefully, it will be a weekly podcast in which we will talk about, debate, sort of give our unbiased opinions on the happenings around politics, mainly within the week. So sort of like a roundup of what happened in the week for those of you who missed anything. It's sort of like hopefully around half an hour to an hour worth of us just yapping, basically.
There's a lot to go through this week, isn't there?
Yeah. Where did you want to start?
Where do we
I
start?
think we leave the big thing from Saturday towards the end. Thank you, producer Aidan Wood. We have someone behind the camera, by the way, who can keep speaking when it's not his turn. The day is the 27th of March, ladies and gentlemen. What? April. April. Forgive me. That was a Freudian slip, ladies and gentlemen. So today is the 27th of April, and commencing from here on in, there will be weekly episodes.
We start with the obvious thing in the news is that the Iran war is still happening.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the war that was meant to last about 2 days is still going. I think it's in probably its 10th-ish week.
10th week?
Eighth,
I think.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump is stalling?
I think he doesn't even know what he's doing or what he wants from this. I think at the start, obviously, he made it very, very clear that what he wanted was a regime change, and he wanted it from the people. Obviously, he hasn't got that because the way that he went about crippling said regime was by also crippling the society. Price hikes inside Iran, and attacking the medicine industry and attacking the Strait of Hormuz that obviously made Iran so much money. So I think now that that's gone so terribly wrong, I don't think he knows what to do, to be honest. I mean, like the peace talks that were going on during the Easter holidays, or supposedly going on, they kind of they kept on going wrong. JD Vance kept on coming away and coming back. And just recently, Trump actually called off more diplomats for the US to go and have any peace talks with Iran. And he basically said that if they wanted negotiations, they can call. But he basically said that we're not going to negotiate you until you're willing to accept a deal. So I'm not entirely sure how it's going to end. I reckon that, I don't know, because I think Trump is too proud to give up. And I think he feels like he's too righteous to give up. I mean, if the elections, the Congress elections go any way that we think they are, I think he'll be forced to leave. God forbid that the conflict continues on to that point. But yeah, I just think that I think it's going to drag on for a while. I mean, just both countries now have blockades in the Strait of Hormuz. He's told his own troops to blow up any vessel putting down mines in the Strait of Hormuz. He's forced. Literally today, I think it was this morning, the Iran foreign minister actually went to Russia and is currently talking with Putin, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest. I think it was one of his biggest misses of the whole conflict from Trump there, because I think he was too, not arrogant, but I think he didn't predict that it was going to go this way, that Iran would be so desperate. He thought that they would be desperate enough that they would fall to the mighty US, right?
Yeah.
But they were so desperate that they now go to the next best thing, or at least the next thing that would support them in this war, which is Russia. Russia, who already, provides them with so many different provisions and weapons, and obviously Russia being one of the only people that Iran are currently letting go through the Strait of Hormuz. So I think it's a really, really bad move from Trump to not do it, to force this action from Iran, I think. Because not only is it going to make Russia so much money, because now they're going to be the only real provider of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, but also this whole conflict has gone on for so long because of Iran's capabilities to fight back, right? If it was any other country in that area that America has previously attempted to change their regime, their military and their economic capabilities have not been as strong as Iran's. And now that Iran is capable of fighting back and, prolonging this conflict, I think this move today with Iran going to Russia can only extend it more, like months more, because all this means is that Russia will make all the money with the oil. Russia will then provide more provisions to Iran, therefore extending their capability to prolong the conflict and just making it so much worse for the rest of the world. I mean, like the BBC said the other day that if the conflict was to end now, the high prices of food, oil, and energy in the UK would remain as they are for the next 8 months, like over half a year after it's ended. Not even before it's ended, but after it's ended, it would carry on like that. So I don't know. The whole conflict, it just seems to be dragging on, and I think it's between one country that is getting, society is kind of crippling inside, but there's no real movement towards changing a regime because people are just so. I think it's crossed the line where the people in Iran are in such a bad position that they can't stop and think we should start uprising now. I think they've been crippled so much that they can't do that, as in the society itself.
I totally agree with you there, and I think the Trump has really split his fan base in America. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So for context, Trump's fan base is largely against American intervention in foreign conflicts, and it's really causing a divide in the MAGA movement. You have people going, "Oh, I'm not going to support Trump after this because he broke a campaign promise to the American people," and I think
no more wars is what he said.
That's unfortunately going to cost him a lot of support in the upcoming elections, the midterms, and not to mention his what was it the other week? He posted a picture of himself.
Oh, I mean, I've got a lot of stuff to say about that, but just before we get on to that, talking about the war, I mean, his own vice president, for the first time, outwardly said, "I do not support this war," because Vance was very much for no more wars, and then obviously Trump, because it's basically MAGA, Trump controlling the country, not the Republicans. He was very, very angry with it and very outspoken with it. But the AI image of Jesus, but Trump depicting himself as Jesus, I think is the worst move he's done in the entirety of his administration for his personal gain in his support. Because the whole basis of MAGA is that they are the Christian party, right?
Yes.
The whole basis is that we are for the Christians, we are the righteous. If you have any value as a Christian, you will vote for me. It's basically what they said. Disregarding the fact that Pete Hegseth delivered a Bible verse that's actually from the film Pulp Fiction and isn't in the Bible. Besides that, he made an AI image of himself depicting himself as Jesus. Now, I'm an atheist myself, but I've watched a couple of videos and it's very clear that one of the worst boo-boos you can make as a Christian man is depict yourself as the Messiah,
Yeah, I mean, the outrage from it across all social media apps and in America itself, it's like the Catholic following are like, the Pope is my Pope.
Bro,
Donald Trump is not my Pope.
Trump beefing the Pope. I don't even know. It's obviously the Pope getting angry about the conflict and not supporting it, but I just feel, like you say, it's just, I just saw it and I was, most of the time I sit there and I think, as an administration, it feels like they're doing everything possible to lose all bit of their support. Like, it feels like an experiment, right? It feels like they got into power and they're like, we have this hyper-religious, devoted support. What could possibly go wrong? Let's test the waters, right? It feels as if they're doing as much possible to lose all their support. And this one it just shocked me because I don't know. The whole basis of their support is the fact that they are the Christian party, and then not woke and stuff like that. Yes, producer Aidan.
Do you think he has lost the support of the religious right in America?
Not completely. I think there's definitely still some following who do support him. And, I think that's the basis of the Republicans are still somewhat seen as the Christian Party of America. What I would find interesting, and I think we could do in a future episode, is the comparison between the rise of the new right under Reagan and Thatcher figures in, America and Britain compared to Trump's kind of religious right movement currently.
Yeah.
I think there are still a fan base supporting him.
I agree.
I don't think it will go, but I think there are a group of people, especially within his supporters, who are now realizing that, especially the post, that's considered blasphemous.
Yeah.
And I think there are some people who have realized, maybe the president depicting himself as our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ isn't particularly good and isn't particularly Christian. But I digress.
Yeah. I don't know. With Iran and the US, it feels like we're in new territory, right? I mean, the comparison you can make for this conflict is Iraq, back in the 2000s, where they went through at least, or as in Blair and the American administration went through the steps to kind of legally justify in front of the UN. Now, a lot of that data is possibly falsified or twisted in some ways. But when making the comparison, the biggest contrast is that there was no legal process going into Iran. Like the day before, there was no concept of anything happening really in Iran. And then overnight, we wake up and suddenly the entirety of Iran is getting bombed with the purpose of killing the regime, which seems entirely anti-American based off of the way that they sort of, like you said, with the whole no more wars. But then again, I feel like we're in unprecedented territory where it's like, I feel like it's a president who's just working constantly to just do, whatever he sees fit in that moment. I don't think that certainly manifestos or anything like that have much value anymore.
I think this is like you said, uncharted territory. It is shifting the world order. You have European countries slowly drifting from America, and I think the UK is in a really unique position with the US. I mean, a lot of people in the UK, and I think this is the stance taken by the Conservatives, is that Donald Trump's alliance with us is temporary. However, we still have a military alliance with the US. Our alliances with the American people rather than the president at that time. And what I really find interesting is Starmer's take on the conflict. I mean, you can tell he's trying to not repeat the mistakes of the same Labour government. I mean, that was the big thing that really caused Tony Blair's popularity to start tumbling downwards. And I think Starmer is very wary that, amongst, our parents' generations, we weren't born, so we wouldn't understand any of the conflict. But I think a lot of our parents' generation were very wary going into this Iran situation, thinking, is the UK going to get involved again, and the implications of that, and what it's, the London Bridge attacks, was it? People are worried. Are we going to get involved in more terrorist attacks going to happen in the UK if we do get involved? Are we making ourselves a target? And I think the current Labour government has taken a lot of care in order to try not take that road. I think perhaps the diplomatic tightrope that Starmer's been walking on is starting to fray around the edges.
Yeah. I mean, we saw for the first time in Starmer's tenure as our Prime Minister, him stand up and actually make a very strong stance on a very, very, very divisive topic. Very sensitive topic, yeah. With how we went completely against most of the Commons and basically said we're not going to support the US in this conflict unless it was defending themselves, which they ended up changing when Cyprus was attacked. But I mean, fuel prices still out, completely out of the graph. I mean, it's not quite as high as 2022 was when, with the sanctions on Russia. But I think we're seeing a very difficult situation diplomatically between the US and the UK. You're right. We're not in agreement with Trump. We're in agreement with America. But I feel like we have to be very careful unless we do make any, irreversible damage.
Because it is important to keep the US as an ally, but the main point is, can we have an unpredictable president as our ally, a president who, has shunned Starmer over the Chagos Islands and is now talking about the Falklands? You can really see that what used to be careful diplomatic language, weeks of talking, has now become Twitter posts. And I mean, we're seeing X, the everything app. Sorry, old habits die hard. But I think it is new. You see wars going on social media, and this, even back in the days of Iraq, this really wasn't happening. You didn't get the president of the United States posting on X and Truth Social, and you didn't get Iranian embassies firing back memes, which I guess, would you say that has desensitized our generation a bit to the war? They don't know the extent of it going on. There's a lot of memes coming out of it.
I don't think it's desensitized, but I think that I think because the political participation with people of our generation is so low that I think it only really affects those who are aware of the war, or at least kind of aware of the war enough that this makes its way onto their feed. I mean, we're living in a world where, 5 years ago, most everybody knew what happened on the internet, news-wise, stuff that went viral, everybody knew about. But now we're living in a world where, there are sides to the internet. People think that stuff is the biggest thing since sliced bread, and then they go to their mate and they talk about it, and the mate has no idea what they're talking about. So I feel like, yes, I'm very much with you for the people that are aware of it. But I think that with most people, they're not even aware of what's going on, or the continuation of what's going on. And I think that if we went outside today, like we went upstairs, and I mean, this is the whole basis of why we're doing all of this, is to improve awareness of politics. But I think if we went upstairs now and just asked random people, I think 4 out of 10 wouldn't even know what happened on Saturday. The shootings at the correspondent dinner. I don't think many people will even have any snippet or idea of that, or any knowledge of it, which is scary.
I think it is scary, but at the same time, I think politics, and I think this is the problem, I think politics become so overwhelming and it drags you down just so much that people are deciding more and more to just stay out of it. And that's, again, like Angus said, that's why we're doing this podcast. Like, we want you to be aware, but we also want you to feel like you're not alone. We're trying to navigate through this as well.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So I think that's our segment on Iran done. Now back to the UK itself, which wow, there's been a lot. So to start off with, we have the ongoing Mandelson thing.
Yeah.
And if you didn't see this last week, Starmer addressed the Commons on last Monday, I think it was, and unfortunately performed quite poorly. I think there was Kemi gave him the questions in advance, and he still
he gave him the questions in advance and then slightly changed the wording, and it kind of just really set everything off. He was grilled, didn't someone get kicked out of the Commons?
Zara Sultana, your party, got kicked out for calling Keir Starmer a liar, which is forbidden in the Commons.
Barefaced liar.
And Lee Anderson from Reform was also kicked out for calling Starmer a liar. I think his control of the Commons was really, really, really poor. You had Emily Thornberry kind of going at him, and then you had Diane Abbott, who I think makes a good point. The British people don't want processes, they want answers. And I think the more Starmer goes on about processes, the less popular he will get. And Diane Abbott also made the brilliant point of it's not about the fact that Starmer didn't know, it's the fact that he didn't ask.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that he's completely lost his hand on the Commons right now?
I think he is. I mean, yes, last week when he was addressing the Commons, Labour MPs were unusually silent, and I think they knew it was quite a dire situation. I mean, as a Prime Minister, you'd hope that your backbench MPs are kind of going, agreeing with what you say, but it was silence. And I think that is just because the utter shock that is just in the Commons right now at how this could have happened. Who should we trust? It is a case of who do we believe? I mean, the Commons believe Starmer is lying to them, and people are trying to get him in front of committee to see if he did mislead the Commons. And I think the point was people are saying he's throwing a lot of other people under the bus when he should be taking the responsibility here. What are your takes?
I can't remember the name, but he did fire someone. I think it was a senior.
Ollie Robbins, the civil servant.
Yes, he did. Yes. He did fire Ollie Robbins as a sort of way to get in the blame of himself. I think that I'm not going to. Yeah, I think with the whole Mandelson stuff, it's been going for a long, long time, and it is quite right that we should be asking the questions. But I think that it's not just that that's kind of been the nail in the coffin for Starmer's control. I mean, it is he's the next Labour Prime Minister to win an election since Tony Blair. I mean, Tony Blair was seen as, the saviour of Britain at some points, up until he kind of made a poor decision with Iraq and eventually was kicked out of office by his own cabinet. But we're seeing a premiership where I don't think Starmer's even started with the same amount of support from his Labour MPs. I mean, what was it, 412? Something like that. I think it's 412.
Could be
Labour MPs.
22 seats.
Maybe.
But
over 400. Over 400 seats taken by the Labour Party. And he's had to make...
Final call for year 11 and 12, please.
Over 400 seats taken by the Labour Party. And he's had upwards of 15 U-turns on policies, some of which were even on the manifesto. I just think that it's not an embarrassment, but it's a really poor position to be in.
Especially right before the May elections, which is why I think there won't be any transition of power until after the May elections. I think now is too soon for a new leader, and I think today is the 27th. For those of you who want to know, the local council elections are on the 7th of May, so if you are 18, get out and vote. Political participation. I don't see this ending well for Starmer.
Oh God, no. No, I think this. I mean, we were saying it last month when he had to have that meeting with the Labour Party when he supposedly gave that really, really great speech. I mean, I said it then. This seems to be his last legs. I think truly now, this seems to be his last legs. I think the only thing that stopped him from going so soon is because there isn't a clear leader to replace him.
Yeah.
And I think we will see that after May the 7th.
I think we've all heard enough of the Mandelson scandal for this
week.
Yes. On to the other big news of the week, which is the fact that the assisted dying bill has failed to go through the Commons. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean...
It's been a touchy one from the start.
Yeah, it's been very divisive, certainly for a policy that's been put forward by a backbencher MP. It's quite unheard of that something takes the media by storm as much as the assisted dying bill did. But I actually think that it's, because of the Iran war and obviously everything that's been going on, it's kind of, awareness of it has definitely died down. So, yeah, when it comes to the assisted dying bill, I think it's a real embarrassment for the Commons in general and their inability to be able to, most of the public do not like the Houses of Lords, right?
No.
Most of the public don't think that they should be there. I mean, the understanding of what the Lords does for us is a little bit lackluster when it comes to having an opinion on that. But I just think their inability to pass it through within that session of Parliament is just a little... It just goes to show about how disjointed Parliament is right now. I mean, the whole thing's divisive. Their own MPs are calling it a jungle right now. I don't think the UK Parliament is in nearly enough of a position it should be in, especially right now, where there being such terrible things happening around the planet that the UK could help with. But we're in such a
state of our own.
Yeah, we can't even we can't even tie up our own tie, let alone help anybody else out. Yeah, the assisted dying bill just not going through. I mean, it's just disappointing, really. It's my... Not even the fact that it did or it didn't go through. I mean, just the fact that it couldn't even go through the Lords. That's what I think is disappointing.
But I think we will see, because hopefully, well, depending on your view on it, the MPs in the Commons are looking at getting it reintroduced in the next session of Parliament. Whether that's happened before, I'm not sure, but it's going to be interesting to see how they try to manage that.
Yeah.
So, UK done. What about the big news on Saturday?
Yes. Cut. Okay, now on to the biggest news of the week.
Yeah, I woke up on Sunday morning, looked at it, and thought, "It's a great start to my Sunday."
Yeah, I mean, certainly very, very shocking. I mean, basically, the news is there was an attempted assassination at the Correspondents' Dinner in Washington on Saturday night for us and Saturday evening for America. And essentially, this guy, Thomas Allen, tried to kill members of the MAGA elite, essentially, and attempted to break in to the dinner. He didn't get very far. He still had 2 flights of stairs left and a very big enforced door. And he was tackled before any gunshots were fired. But I think, yeah, what do you think it means for the state of the US right now?
I mean, Trump said it himself. It's a dangerous world we live in, and I think regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on at the moment, it is a dangerous place from all sides. I think there has been a massive increase in political violence in the US, and I'd say even in the UK there's been quite an increase, but obviously to a lesser extent. I was really, really shocked at it. I mean, I can't remember which president, and that tells you a lot about my United States politics knowledge and really history knowledge. But the White House Correspondents' Dinner took place on one of the same locations a previous president was shot at. So I guess for a lot of people, it was kind of like a reminder of what could happen. I guess I think people are scared. This is what Trump's 3rd assassination attempt. He seems relatively unfazed, people are saying that he's kind of, oh, was it staged? Was it that? I think that he knows that I think if you're president of the United States, you know there are people out to get you.
Yeah, I mean, he said himself that. He said he was not surprised about how he so often is attempted. Someone has attempted to assassinate him, because he believes that all presidents who strive for change are usually killed because the people don't like change, likening himself to Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
So, I mean, he himself is not surprised. I mean, he did say that he wanted to continue with the dinner, and claimed that, he wasn't too bothered by it. But I mean, it just in the last 2 years, is it, or something like that, there's been like 4 different assassination attempts towards political figures. One that was successful. I think it's scary for the state of politics right now, and I think it's almost the worst thing for politics right now.
Yeah, the last thing people need is more violence to show how fragile it's really volatile. I kind of sometimes like to think it's about like a bomb about to blow up, but not enough information has come out regarding this issue yet.
Yeah, not too much has come out. Literally just the fact that he was a college level tutor. He was described as a genius by those who knew him. Apparently he was very religious, so it could have something to do with the AI image or anything like that. And you never really know until they've properly questioned him. But they seem to have got a lot of information from him already. So
I guess it'll just be interesting to see where this goes in a week's time.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know a lot more in a week's time, and we will give an update. But it's huge news, there's been an attempted assassination on the president of the United States.
Again.
And I don't think it's, he hasn't even been done half of his presidency.
Yes. So
if he continues to remain in his position, we could see another 4 assassination attempts on him. And I think it's crazy that we're living in a world, and it is the worst thing for politics, in my opinion, because I think division and the inability to listen to the other side and the hatred for the other side is exactly what differs from people who get angry about the world and people who want to change it politically. I think there's a very big difference between those who see themselves as political and those who see themselves as aware of what's going on around the world. Ideological wise. and then politically. The whole basis of politics and democracy, we are the so-called Western modern world, democracy is in our blood. It is certainly the basis of American life. You know, if it wasn't, if they didn't feel like they were in a democratic society, it would be 100-year civil war. And the whole point of democracy is obviously working together to hear as many views as possible to come up with a view that benefits the most people.
Yes.
And in a world where, you know, I mean, in a world where people struggle to even attempt to listen to the other side or tolerate the other side is the big one. I think it's really scary for democracy as a whole, because it would just, you know, populism and stuff like that is so huge, because people just, we're in a trend here where hatred is the trend, you know?
I think it is the trend, but of course, I do think some of that hatred is out of fear. And I think that is the kind of thorn in everyone's side right now. You know, people are fearful of politics, they take sides.
Yeah.
When people are fearful and they don't understand, they take sides. And it's just a lot, really.
Yeah, it's a lot. Hopefully,
I think next week we'll try and find a positive bit of news, politics news to finish the
yeah,
episode.
yeah. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it does seem to be quite depressing so far. So hopefully next week gives us some better news to touch upon. But anyway, so that was our first episode.
Thank you for listening.
We hope that you will subscribe and possibly like, to be able to get notifications on our later videos. But yeah, so follow us on Talk Politics for You, and hopefully you watch the rest of our videos on Talking Politics. So thank you very much, guys.